I-35F was reviewing investment portfolios at my desk, just like any other Tuesday morning, when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Usually, I let these calls go to voicemail. Spam calls are endless these days, but something made me pick up. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe just random chance. Either way, that call would turn my carefully constructed world upside down. "Hello," I answered, still scanning the numbers on my screen. The office around me was quiet except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of keyboards clicking. "Elizabeth?" The voice on the other end was hesitant, familiar in a way that made my stomach clench. It's your mother." My fingers froze over the keyboard. 12 years. It had been 12 years since I'd heard that voice, since I'd spoken to any of them, my mother, my father, or my sister Samantha. 12 years of building my own life, my own success, far away from their toxic favoritism. "What do you want?" My voice came out harder than I'd intended, but then again, maybe that's exactly how I meant it to sound. My free hand curled into a fist on my desk. There was a pause, a deep breath. "Your father is very ill, Elizabeth. The doctors, they say he doesn't have much time left." Her voice cracked slightly. "We want you to come home. To make peace. To say goodbye." I sat there staring at the modern art piece hanging on my office wall, the one I bought myself last year just because I could. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band ready to snap. Outside my window, life went on as normal, people walking, cars passing, the world spinning, but in my office, time seemed to stand still. "I'll think about it," I finally said and hung up before she could respond, before she could try to guilt me, manipulate me, or whatever else she might have planned. For a long time, I just sat there, my coffee growing cold beside me. Memories I tried so hard to lock away came flooding back like a dam breaking. I found myself remembering everything that had led to this moment, every slight, every betrayal, every moment of choosing Samantha over me. I was always the responsible one, the independent one. I had to be. From the time Samantha was born, just 2 years after me, it was clear who the favorite was. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary day, the pattern was the same. Samantha got the new toys, the prettier clothes, the bigger portion of dessert. I got the hand-me-downs, the practical gifts, the lectures about being a big sister and how I needed to set an example. When Samantha, 33F, wanted my new colored pencils in 3rd grade, Mom made me share them. "You know how sensitive your sister is," she'd say while Samantha smirked behind her back. When she broke my favorite book by throwing it in the pool during a tantrum, Dad just said accidents happen and bought her an ice cream to cheer her up. The book had been a gift from my favorite teacher, and I'd spent hours reading it under my covers with a flashlight. No one bought me a replacement. When she got better grades, they threw parties. "Look how smart our little girl is," they'd crow, while I sat in the corner with my straight A's that were just expected. When I got better grades, they just nodded and said, "That's what we expect from you, Elizabeth. You're older, you should be setting the example." I learned early on that if I wanted something, I had to get it myself. At 16, I started working at Joe's Cafe after school. The manager, Sarah, became more of a mentor to me than my own mother ever was. She taught me about responsibility, about saving money, about standing up for myself. I saved every penny, dreaming of the day I could build my own life. The phone incident was what really opened my eyes to how deep the favoritism ran. I'd saved for months to buy myself a smartphone, nothing fancy, just a basic model for $100 that I'd earned one tip at a time. The day I brought it home, Samantha threw a fit. "But I want one too," she wailed, reaching for my phone with grabbing hands. "Elizabeth, give it to me. You're so selfish." "No," I said firmly, holding it out of reach. "I bought this with my own money. You can save up for one too. You can get a job like I did." "Mom!" Samantha screamed, her face turning red. "Dad! Elizabeth's being mean." They came running, of course. They always came running when Samantha called. Mom from the kitchen, Dad from his study, both looking concerned about their precious baby's distress. "Elizabeth," my father said sternly, his face set in that disappointment I knew so well. Why are you being selfish? Your sister just wants to see your phone. Because it's mine, I replied, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. I worked for it. I earned it, every single dollar. You're supposed to love your sister, my mother added, her disappointment evident. How can you be so cruel? We raised you better than this. I looked at them, really looked at them, and something clicked into place. This wasn't normal. This wasn't fair. This wasn't love. This was something else entirely, and I was done pretending it was okay. That night, I started researching colleges in other states, dreaming of escape. I opened a new document on my computer and typed investment management programs at the top. I remember the day the acceptance letter came like it was yesterday. I was 18, had just graduated high school, and my hands were shaking as I opened the envelope from the investment management program in Arizona. Sarah watched me from behind the cafe counter. She knew how much this meant to me. I got in, I whispered, then louder, I got in. Sarah hugged me tight. I never doubted you for a second, kiddo. The letter offered a partial scholarship, which was more than I'd hoped for. I'd need about $30,000 to cover the rest of the expenses. It should have been no problem. I knew about the money Grandpa had left before he died. He'd made it clear it was for both his granddaughter's education. I'd been there when he told Mom and Dad, make sure both girls get their schooling. That's what this money is for. I drove home that day full of hope. Maybe this would be the moment things changed. Maybe they'd be proud of me. Maybe they'd finally see me. I found them in the living room, Samantha sprawled on the couch texting while Mom and Dad watched TV. I got accepted, I announced, holding up the letter. The investment management program in Arizona. They're even giving me a partial scholarship. Mom muted the TV. Dad shifted in his chair. Samantha didn't even look up from her phone. That's nice, honey, Mom said, but something in her tone made my stomach drop. But Arizona is so far away. The program is exactly what I want to do, I explained. And with Grandpa's money for the remaining tuition. About that, Dad interrupted, clearing his throat. We don't have that money anymore. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What do you mean? Grandpa left that money specifically for our education. Both of us. Well, Mom said, smoothing her skirt, we had to make some choices. Investment opportunities came up, and what about Samantha's college fund? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I could see it in their faces. Dad actually laughed. Don't worry about your sister's education. We've got that covered. So you spent my portion, my voice was rising, you spent the money Grandpa left for my education but kept Samantha's? Don't be dramatic, Mom said. You're good at figuring things out. You'll find a way. I looked at them, really looked at them. At Mom's expensive jewelry, at Dad's new golf clubs in the corner, at Samantha's designer clothes and latest iPhone. You're telling me, I said slowly, that you spent the money my grandfather left for my education on stuff? On yourselves? Watch your tone, Dad warned. No. I shouted. I won't watch my tone. This is wrong. This is so wrong. Grandpa wanted that money to go to both of us. Get out, Mom snapped. Just get out until you can speak to us with respect. I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I drove to the cafe, tears blurring my vision, and worked my shift in a daze. The next day was my regular morning shift at the cafe. I went through the motions, making coffee and serving breakfast, trying to figure out what to do next. Sarah noticed something was wrong but didn't push. That's why I loved her. When I got home that afternoon, my key wouldn't work in the lock. I tried again and again, but it wouldn't turn. That's when I noticed my suitcases, the old ones from the basement, sitting by the door. They were stuffed with my clothes, some haphazardly folded, others just shoved in. Mom? I called out, knocking. Dad? You're not welcome here anymore, Mom's voice came through the door. We won't have that kind of disrespect in this house. Are you serious? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're kicking me out because I was upset that you stole my college money? Don't be so dramatic, she replied. You're 18 now, an adult. Time to figure things out on your own. I stood there staring at those suitcases, trying not to cry. Cars passed by on our street, neighbors who'd known me my whole life driving past like nothing was wrong, like my parents hadn't just thrown me out. That night, sitting in Aunt Rachel's guest room, she and Uncle Mike had come to get me after I called them in tears. They came in with a check. We want to help with your college tuition, Aunt Rachel said. It's not everything, but it's what we can do. I'll pay you back, I promised through tears. Every penny. We know you will, Uncle Mike said, because unlike some people, we know exactly who you are and what you're capable of. The next 12 years passed like a dream I'd built with my own 2 hands. College was tough but exhilarating. I threw myself into my studies, working part-time at the university's financial office to cover living expenses. Every semester I made the dean's list, every summer I landed prestigious internships, and every month I put aside money to repay Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike. Now, sitting in my corner office at Goldman Investment Partners, looking at the unknown number still glowing on my phone screen, I wonder if I'm ready to face them again. But I know I'm not that helpless 18-year-old anymore. I'm a senior investment analyst who made partner last year. I have power now, not just financial power, but the power that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth. I pick up my phone and dial my aunt's number. I need her advice before I make any decisions. After all, she and Uncle Mike are my real family now. The question isn't whether I'll go see my dying father. The question is what they really want from me this time, and whether I'm strong enough to face whatever manipulation they have planned. Somehow, I doubt this is just about saying goodbye. Update 1, I was right about their true intentions, and it's even worse than I imagined. I walked into the hospital room where my father lay, significantly thinner than I remembered, his once commanding presence diminished by illness. My mother stood by his bedside, and Samantha sat in the corner, tapping away on her latest iPhone, barely acknowledging my presence. Elizabeth, my father's voice was weak but still carried that authoritative tone I remembered. You came. Before I could respond, my mother jumped in. Now that we're all here, we need to discuss something important. She glanced at my designer suit and Cartier watch, clear signs of my success that didn't escape her calculating eyes. Your father has something he needs you to promise, she continued. A dying man's last wish. I remained silent, already sensing where this was heading. Dad struggled to sit up straighter in his hospital bed. After I'm gone, he began, his voice carrying that familiar manipulative tone I remembered from childhood, I need to know that Samantha will be taken care of. That she'll be able to maintain her lifestyle. There it was. 12 years of silence, and this was why they reached out. You want me to financially support my fully capable adult sister? I asked, my voice deliberately calm. Well, you're doing so well, Mom interjected. You have more than enough to help your sister. It's what family does. Samantha finally looked up from her phone. It's not fair that you have so much money and won't share it. You've always been selfish. I took in her appearance, designer dress, expensive jewelry, perfectly manicured nails. What exactly have you been doing these past 12 years, Samantha? While I was working 60-hour weeks building my career, what were you doing? I've been finding myself, she replied defensively. Not all of us want to be corporate slaves. Finding yourself on Mom and Dad's dime, I noted. And now that Dad's sick, you're worried about losing your meal ticket, aren't you? Don't talk to your sister that way. Mom snapped. She's sensitive, she needs to grow up, I cut in. She needs to learn how to support herself. She needs to stop depending on everyone else to fund her lifestyle. Dad's fist hit the bedside table, though with less force than I remembered from childhood. Enough. I'm dying, Elizabeth. My last wish is to know that my youngest daughter will be taken care of. And what about your oldest daughter? I asked quietly. Did you ever want to take care of me? The silence that followed was deafening. I grabbed my purse from the chair. I'm leaving, I announced. I'll help pay for Dad's medical bills if he needs it, but I will not support Samantha. That's my final answer. As I walked out, ignoring my mother's calls and my sister's dramatic sobs, I called my aunt. They want me to support Samantha, I said when she answered. Can you believe that? Oh, Elizabeth, she sighed. I was afraid it might be something like that. Your sister hasn't worked a day in her life, and your parents, they've enabled her for so long. The next 2 days have been a blur of angry calls and text messages. My mother and sister have bombarded my phone with guilt trips and accusations. You're killing your father with your selfishness, Mom texted. You've always been jealous of me, Samantha wrote. You're just trying to punish me. I've saved every message. Something tells me I might need them later. When Mom called again, I turned on my phone recording app before answering. The vitriol and manipulation in their messages have only confirmed what I've known for years. This was never about reconciliation. It was about money, about maintaining Samantha's privileged lifestyle at my expense. I've started gathering evidence, screenshots of their messages, recordings of calls, documentation of their past financial abuse. I may be their daughter, but I'm also a senior investment analyst who understands the importance of maintaining detailed records. Something tells me this isn't over. They've always underestimated me, always seen me as the reliable one they could manipulate. But I'm not that person anymore. Let them try their worst. I'm ready. Update 2, things have escalated exactly as I anticipated, but they clearly didn't expect me to be prepared for their tactics. Yesterday, my mother posted a lengthy narrative on social media about her heartless daughter who refused to help her dying father. The post quickly filled with comments from relatives and family friends expressing their shock and disappointment in me. What these people don't know is that I've spent the last 12 years meticulously documenting every interaction, every manipulation, every financial abuse. My mother's post was the final push I needed. I logged into my rarely used Facebook account and wrote my own post. I began with the truth about their recent contact. Not that they wanted to reconcile, but that they demanded I financially support my able-bodied adult sister. I attached the screenshots of their recent texts and transcripts of recorded calls. Then I revealed the documented proof of how they spent my college fund while preserving Samantha's, along with bank statements showing their lavish spending during the same period they claimed they couldn't afford my education. I included the police report from when they changed the locks and left my belongings on the porch, followed by their recent text messages showing their attempts at emotional manipulation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Family members I hadn't spoken to in years reached out privately, many sharing their own stories of witnessing the favoritism but never speaking up. Even my mother's closest friends couldn't justify asking one daughter to support another perfectly capable adult. My mother tried to defend herself in the comments, but each explanation just dug her deeper. We had to make difficult choices, she wrote. Samantha has special needs, she doesn't. Elizabeth was always more capable. Each justification only served to further expose her manipulation. Then came the threatening messages from Samantha. You've ruined everything, she wrote. Mom's having anxiety attacks because of you. Her messages grew increasingly hostile, I'll never forgive you for this. But the most revealing response came from my father's sister, Aunt Patricia, who I hadn't heard from in years. She messaged me privately with information that confirmed my suspicions about their financial situation. Your parents remortgaged their house last year to cover Samantha's business ventures, all failed, she revealed. They've been living on credit cards and your father's pension. They're not just asking you to support Samantha, they're desperate for someone to bail them all out. The family dynamic has shifted dramatically. Relatives who once enabled my parents' behavior are now reaching out to apologize for not speaking up sooner. Several cousins have shared similar stories of financial manipulation within their own immediate families. The carefully crafted image my mother maintained of the devoted parent sacrificing everything for her children is crumbling as the truth about their financial mismanagement and blatant favoritism finally comes to light. I've received a formal letter from their lawyer, attempting to claim that I have some sort of familial obligation to provide financial support. My response was swift. I had my own lawyer send a comprehensive package of evidence documenting their past financial abuse and current harassment. Uncle Mike, who's been following the situation closely, pointed out something interesting during our weekly dinner. Notice how they're not denying the facts anymore? They're just trying to justify their actions. He's right. Their strategy has shifted from denial to rationalization. But they've forgotten one crucial detail: I'm not just the reliable daughter they can manipulate anymore. I'm a senior investment analyst who understands both money and power. I've instructed my lawyer to prepare a cease and desist letter regarding their harassment. Any further communication must go through legal channels. I've also started the process of documenting every penny they took from my grandfather's education fund. Not because I plan to sue, the statute of limitations has long passed, but because I want a complete record of their financial abuse. The truth is, I don't need their acknowledgement or apology anymore. Their actions now are just confirming what I've known for years: this was never about family. It was always about money and control. Aunt Rachel called me yesterday after seeing the social media fallout. "Are you okay?" she asked. I found myself smiling despite everything. "Actually, I am," I replied. For the first time, everyone else sees them for who they really are. She was quiet for a moment before saying, "You know, your grandfather would be proud of you. Not just for your success, but for standing up for yourself." I'm done being the family scapegoat. I'm done being the responsible one they can manipulate. And most importantly, I'm done keeping their secrets. Update 3: Dad passed away yesterday. I found out through Aunt Rachel, not my mother. She said it was peaceful, in his sleep. No one invited me to the funeral, but I hadn't expected them to. The events leading up to his death revealed increasingly desperate attempts at manipulation. In his final days, my father had his lawyer send another letter, suggesting that supporting Samantha was his dying wish, and that I had a moral obligation to fulfill it. The letter conveniently ignored all the evidence I presented about their past financial abuse. I had my lawyer respond with a simple statement: I would cover any outstanding medical bills directly with the hospital, but would not provide any other financial support. The response from my mother was immediate and vitriolic. "How dare you try to control even this?" she screamed over the phone when she called, ignoring my request for legal-only communication. "Your father is dying, and you're still being spiteful." I recorded the entire call, of course. Just like I've recorded every interaction since they first reached out. Being an investment analyst has taught me the value of maintaining detailed records. Last week, I discovered through Aunt Patricia that things were even worse than I'd suspected. My parents had already promised Samantha she would be taken care of after Dad's death. They had convinced her that between his life insurance and my obligation to support her, she would never have to work. Moreover, Dad had secretly taken out a second mortgage on their house to fund Samantha's latest business venture, a luxury pet accessories boutique that never even opened. The day before Dad died, Samantha sent me a carefully crafted email, attempting to appeal to my business sense. She outlined her boutique's business plan with wildly unrealistic projections, suggesting that if I would invest, she would consider it a loan rather than a gift. Within hours of forwarding it to my lawyer, we discovered she had already registered the business and taken out several high-interest loans using Dad's information as a guarantor. This morning, I sent a simple bouquet of white lilies to the funeral home. The card read only, "Goodbye, Dad." Not cold, but not falsely sentimental either. My mother, predictably, took a photo of the flowers and posted it on social media with a long caption about her cruel eldest daughter, who couldn't even be bothered to attend her father's funeral. She conveniently omitted that I wasn't invited. The family's response to her post was telling. Instead of the sympathy she clearly expected, most relatives questioned why I wasn't invited. Her carefully constructed narrative is finally falling apart. Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike have been my rocks through all of this. They're coming over for dinner tonight, bringing photo albums from my college graduation and first job. "Let's remember the good times," Aunt Rachel said. "The times when you proved them all wrong." I've arranged for Dad's medical bills to be paid directly to the hospital. It's my final act as a daughter, done not out of obligation but out of respect for who he could have been, rather than who he was. The most ironic part? If they had genuinely reached out for reconciliation, if they had shown any real remorse or desire to make amends, I might have helped them develop a financial plan to secure their retirement. But they couldn't see past their own entitlement and manipulation. Their last chance at having a relationship with their successful eldest daughter died with their attempts to use Dad's death as leverage for financial gain. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Update 4: 3 months have passed since Dad's funeral. Through Aunt Rachel, I hear that Mom is struggling to maintain their lifestyle with what Dad left behind. Samantha throws tantrums about not being able to afford her usual shopping sprees and restaurant meals. Last week, I got another call from an unknown number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. It was Samantha, asking if I'd reconsider helping her just until she gets on her feet. I deleted the message without responding. Sitting in my office now, looking at the life I've built for myself, I feel at peace with my decisions. The photo on my desk shows me with Aunt Rachel and Uncle Mike at my last birthday celebration. They're my real family, the ones who believed in me, supported me, loved me unconditionally. Blood might be thicker than water, as they say, but love is thicker than blood. Real love doesn't come with conditions or price tags. I glance at the text from Aunt Rachel asking if I'm still coming for Sunday dinner. I smile and text back a quick, yes, wouldn't miss it. The company announced my promotion to executive director last week. The irony isn't lost on me that the amount of my annual bonus alone could fund Samantha's lifestyle for years. But that's not my responsibility, and it never was. Some people might call me cold or unforgiving, but I learned long ago that maintaining healthy boundaries isn't the same as being cruel. Some bridges stay burned for a reason, but others grow stronger with time. I've learned to know the difference.